Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to our panel discussion. My name is Yulia Sapko. I'm a career consultant in University Career Center. And today we have a wonderful panel. And I wanted to start with some guidelines. This event will be recorded. It is recorded, so you will find the recording in this team chat. It will be saved after we end the meeting, and also hopefully we will also publish that on our YouTube channel. Please mute your mics and turn off your cameras unless you're a speaker or panelist. We will have a session at the end where you will be able to ask questions. You can also put your questions in chat, and you will be able to unmute yourself and kind of introduce yourself and ask your questions. Again, you can also use the chat function. Please keep comments and questions respectful in the chat. And there is also closed captioning available if you need it. And I wanted to give the floor to our panelists to introduce themselves. And let's start with Jakob.
Yeah, so I'm Jakob Morrow. I graduated this May with an undergrad in biomedical engineering from UTD, and I got hired back at a company I got a co-op at back in 2020, Insulet Corporation. It's a med device company. We make an insulin pump called the Omnipod, and that's me.
Perfect, thank you. I'm not sure if Jasmine joined us yet. She was having some technical issues. Jasmine, are you here? Alrighty, let's give a little bit more time. All right, and next on the list I have Lucas.
Hey everybody, Lucas Smith. I'm a senior manager of data analytics at Hudl. We're a sports technology company that focuses on kind of game day performance, post-match, pre-match, and recruiting analysis. I have been in data for too many years now, 13, 14 years now. Worked at Fortune 500 companies, small consultancies, and now at a good-sized technology company called Hudl. So it's good to meet everybody.
Thank you. I'm not sure I see Maryam. Are you here? She probably has some issues with tech as well. All right, let's move to Mel.
Hi, I'm Mel Friant. I'm Deputy Division Chief for the Exploration Development Integration Division at NASA's Johnson Space Center. We provide technical integration among all the major programs that support the Artemis program, which is sending people back to the moon.
Thank you. That's exciting. Sabrina.
Okay, it's hard to follow that up and being a deputy chief, but my name is Sabrina Peng. I am a software engineer at Capital One. I graduated from Southern Methodist University down the street in Dallas about 2 years ago. So that was in May 2020. And then I started at Capital One in our technology development program in August of 2020. And previously, I also interned at Capital One as well. And that's how I got my full-time role.
Thank you for sharing. All right. While we're still waiting for two more speakers, I just wanted to start with our questions since we have an hour together. So the first question, you already kind of covered that a little bit, but the first question is if you can share a little more information about yourself. So about who you are, your current position, company, education, maybe like what kind of major you had. And then maybe let's move to the second question. Describe your career path. Tell us a little bit more about your history. How did you choose this career? And like networking, internships, jobs, summer jobs, student orgs, yeah, anything you are willing to share. We don't have to follow that order, so who wants to jump next? I'll be happy to give you the floor.
I guess I can go. So I don't know. So I started my freshman year at UTD in 2017, and like most of us, I kind of started and I didn't really know what was going to happen or where I was going to go. And it really wasn't until my sophomore year that I started kind of thinking about internships and what's going to happen after college. And I guess a little backstory on me is I had necrotizing pancreatitis my senior year of high school. So I spent a lot of time in an ICU bed, and to cut a long story short, like almost died a few times. And I don't know, that's definitely what motivated me to pursue a career in biomedical engineering. And due to those health problems, I became like a type 1 diabetic overnight. And the company I work for, they make insulin pumps. So I kind of just, I came up with this little dream that I had that, like, especially when I was in my ICU bed, that having the opportunity to give people the chance to live a longer and more fulfilling life through medical devices, or even save their lives, like the med devices that were connected to me in my ICU bed did, that kind of became like my passion and my dream. So that really led me to pursue med device. And then I got a pump from a company called Medtronic in the summer of 2018. And I kind of like, the pump really did change my life. So I started just messaging a bunch of people at Medtronic on LinkedIn, and I got the hold of the right person. And that led to me getting some interviews, but then that didn't go through. So I just used the same cold message I came up with, and I sent it to a campus recruiter at Insulet, and then they hired me. And then a summer later, I got hired at Medtronic too, and came back to Insulet. So, and I guess a typical day for me. So I'm an associate systems engineer, comma VNV, but that really means I'm a test engineer. So there's these things called product requirement specifications that are pretty much, they describe how any product is supposed to work. And we have a bunch of things called test cases, which are very specific written instructions for how to validate those requirements. And I basically run tests and do anything related to running tests, whether it's like equipment management, just figuring out where resources are. That's pretty much it. But yeah, finding bugs and characterizing issues and running tests is my typical day.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Who wants to jump next?
I can go next. I've been at NASA for 26 years. I'm a mechanical engineer. I graduated from Rutgers in New Jersey. And I wanted to be a project engineer in a chemical plant. So I didn't train to work in the space business or anything. When I went to my career services 26 years ago, we didn't have websites and things like that. They handed you a career magazine with a bunch of job listings in it, and you send out resumes. And the one that called me back was United Space Alliance. I went to be a contractor for NASA here at Johnson Space Center. I did that for 2 years before I became a civil servant. I worked as a flight controller for the space shuttle for 32 missions before the space shuttle was retired. I went on to take a couple of different systems engineering roles in the Orion program, developing the Orion space capsule. And now I'm a supervisor in a line organization that provides technical integration support between all the different major programs of the Artemis effort. So the lander, the Orion spacecraft, the Space Launch System rocket, all those pieces. So I guess a typical day evolved during my career. At first, I spent a lot of time training and working in simulations and learning how the systems of the space shuttle worked. Later on, as I became a system engineer, I focused more on things like requirements development, the processes for establishing, reviewing, and verifying requirements. And then later on, more into the integration between the different elements of Artemis, and that's what led me to my current position. Spend a lot of time in meetings.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I can go next. So first of all, I'm going to walk it backwards. I completely echo the sentiment of I spent a lot of time in meetings now. But my background and my career is actually really interesting from a tech perspective. So I went to school under scholarship to be a journalist. I really wanted to do like newspaper design and got into it and realized I didn't want to do that and that I was good at math. So I just started studying math and thought maybe I'd be a teacher. Got into some teachers' education classes and realized I didn't want to be a teacher. So then what do? You get a general studies degree in exercise science and math because you don't know what else to do. I got the opportunity to work in a lab when I was at Indiana University, studying how people interact with their workplace, ergonomics, kinesiology. So you think of like sports science, you've seen it on ESPN or wherever it might be. Those are the types of concepts we studied, but we applied it to industrial workplaces. And so that led me to my first master's degree in kinesiology and some contracts with a few railroads, which then led me into some fatigue analysis and ultimately led me into more of a traditional business intelligence role. Ultimately ending up at Union Pacific Railroad, managing a few different teams. While we were there, we decided that we were going to look at how we address risk on the railroad differently than traditional means. So typically in manufacturing or transportation companies, you will try to motivate your people to be safer. But we knew we could do more than that. We could create systems and we could use predictive analytics to really kind of hone in on those kind of risk hot points. And I was able to, and fortunate enough to develop a risk analytics program, physical risk analytics program for the railroad, and got a master's in predictive analytics from Northwestern University. From there, decided that I wanted to jump out of kind of the traditional Fortune 500 space and get into a tech company. And in the Lincoln, Omaha area, there's a well-known company called Hudl, which anybody who has been in high school sports recently probably knows who we are. And I got an opportunity to lead some of our data teams. Really wanted to dig back into kind of the data science, but more in your newer technology software space. So that's where I'm at today.
Thank you. And I see Jasmine. Jasmine, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness. Sorry for joining late. I had tech issues, but I'm glad that you can see me and hear me, and I can see you and hear you. So I think what I'm gathering is we're introducing ourselves right now.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So am I the last one to go?
No, you're not the last one.
Okay, well, I'm already talking, so I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Jasmine, or Jazz, she, they pronouns, and I work as an electrical engineer for Collins Aerospace. So how I got to this position, well, I am a UTD alum, so whoosh, go Comets. Happy to see students engaging and participating in these speaker panel events. I did my undergrad in electrical engineering. You can see my degrees in the background. And I chose that just kind of following in my dad's footsteps. I liked math and science, and he was an electrical engineer, and I knew UTD had a really great program. So I did that for my undergrad. And if you're in the engineering school at UTD, you're probably familiar with the fast track program. So I did that to complete my master's in double E as well, with a focus in RF classes. How I chose that was, I think they've changed the curriculum since I graduated, but RF elective used to be a required course you had to take. And I really liked that. So I just wanted to continue in that field. And if you haven't taken an RF class and you're a double E, I highly recommend it. I think it's really important, even if you don't go into RF. It's a great
What's
class. Oh, radio frequency.
Thank you.
Yes. So, and even if you don't go into RF, it's just good, like a good 101 sort of knowledge to have as a double E. So I'm already getting into advice, but yeah, I started as an intern at Collins and mostly working on the production floor. So I got hired during COVID, was coming in every day, working with operations, mask on and everything, and helped with manufacturing. I was mainly responsible for testing and verification for power amplifiers for this radio system that we were working on. So that was a really good experience. And now I've kind of transitioned, dipping my toe into the systems world. I'm currently a Scrum Master on an Agile team for a systems engineering team, working on internal setup here at the company. And I am actually very excited because I recently got into a rotational program that Collins offers that targets early career engineers. And this involves going to rotate to different sites, different positions. anywhere for 8 months each. And I'm really excited to get to explore other parts of our special business units and other roles that's kind of outside the mission systems world that I'm in right now. So that's me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
And
you.
Sabrina.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm last. So, yeah, so I grew up in the Plano area, and both of my parents were software engineers, and both had like master's degrees in software engineering. So really high bar to meet. But in high school, I decided I didn't want to, major in computer science. I didn't want to do anything software engineering related because I thought coding was kind of boring. I took one class in high school, and it was like fine. It was fun because we made like the little Java games and things like that, but nothing really too crazy. And I applied to like all my universities as like business major or economics major. And I started my freshman year as a finance major, intending to go into consulting or investment banking. Quickly realized I don't like flying that much, so consulting was out of the question. And investment banking, you work like 80 to 100 hours a week, which I wasn't really willing to sacrifice my work-life balance for my job. So I was thinking about what other roles I could explore. And then in the meantime, like I had a lot of friends in computer science, so I ended up taking a couple of like engineering classes, thinking that it would, help with like the technology part of like the business world. Really liked it. Officially like double majored, like not even a semester later. And then now I get to use both my finance degrees and my computer science degree at Capital One, because I do technology at a bank. And like at Capital One, we like to say that we're a technology company. Obviously, we do like our credit cards and our auto loans and things like that. But we have a very strong technology force that is growing every day, which is super exciting. We're constantly on the cutting edge of things, which you wouldn't really expect from like a big bank. But we are like, we made like a push to be like all in on the cloud, and we're the first bank to do so. And that was really exciting to be kind of coming in at the end of that push and seeing where Capital One is going to go in the future. And then as for a typical day, so I recently just finished my stint in the technology development program. I know Jasmine, you mentioned like a rotational program for like early engineers. So our new grad program at Capital One is rotational. So you spend 1 year in each rotation. There's only two, so it's 2 years total. So you'll have two different rotations in your first 2 years here at Capital One. And you get to, you get to explore different parts of the business, different technologies to use. So my first rotation, I was in small business lending, and this was like right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we were actually helping to disperse PPP loans to small businesses. That was really impactful. I felt like my work was, was actually showing like and being impactful on a daily basis, because a lot of small businesses were really struggling during the pandemic. So that was really cool. And then now currently on my second team, and I'm just like continuing on my second team after graduating from our rotational program, I work in our auto loan space. So if you guys ever, I hope you guys never have to encounter my technology as a customer of Capital One, because I work with customers who are like severely delinquent on their loans. So this is like 120 days delinquent. You haven't paid in about 4 months, you come to us, and we end up having to do like some sort of like vehicle resolution, which may or may not include like a payment plan or a settlement plan. And sometimes, unfortunately, it results in repossessions. So I was actually just writing our code for whether or not someone is eligible or not eligible for a repossession like a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully you'll never have to encounter my code as a customer, but the business logic behind it is really cool. So days include like meetings to discuss like designs of our like user interfaces, or like our backend architectures. We have a lot of heads down time at my level, at least, to work on our stories. And then we do like a meeting like every morning to like check in to see what everyone is doing on the team. And then at the end of like every 2 weeks, because that's how long our sprint is, on whether or not we finished our tasks, and then we'll start the next sprint like the next day. So today is the first day of our new sprint. So I just got assigned a couple of really cool stories this morning. So I'm excited to get started working on them.
Thank you for sharing. You mentioned a very important topic, which I didn't have originally this question, but now I want to ask everyone. Work-life balance. Can you share a little more about that? Working hours, work-life balance, how does it look in your careers and your positions? I feel like this is a very important question that's not very discussed. Who wants to jump first?
Hi, I can go ahead and get the ball rolling. So I think my managers and mentors here at Collins very much encourage you to take time off if you need it. And I think just the culture here is good for, no one wants the rest of the team to deal with burnout. And that's also true of me and my ERG work, Employee Resource Group. I'm a leader in Pride, and that's technically a volunteer role. So it comes with a lot of extra work, but the work is very fulfilling because I get to serve my community. And in general, I try to just, when I'm home, log off. I know that might be harder if you work from home, but I personally go into the office every day. So when I come home, I'm just say it's me time now. I'm not working. I turn off my work profile on my phone so that I don't get notifications or for emails or messages. On my phone after work. And I'm glad that I can toggle that, but it is convenient to have on my phone when I am in the office. And just in general, I like to keep a busy schedule for like socializing and seeing my friends and doing fun stuff outside of work. So that's kind of how I manage things. I also have a dog, so I have to, take care of him, take him on walks, and that's good self-care too, I think.
I would
So-
say
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead, I guess. Yeah, my job is very like seasonal in terms of times when we're busy and times when we're not. We go through forget your name, but we also have sprints too. We use an agile platform, so we have like some sprints where it is like you're working as much as you can, but that really only happens about probably like 2 or 3 weeks out of the year. And then the rest of the year, yeah, it is like really work-life balance, like close your computer at 5, or it's really do as much as you want as long as you're getting your job done. And my company also is a little bit progressive in the sense that during the summer, we can leave work at Friday at 1 p.m. And then we also have, they just gave us like a mid-year break in the middle of July. We get like a whole week off. And then we also get the week from Christmas until New Year's off. So my company definitely values work-life balance, and yeah, that's a big part of why I chose to work here, because I was happy. But yeah.
I would say it depends. Work-life balance depends on the job that you're in, even within the company or organization that you work for. So over the course of my career, when I started my career, I didn't have kids or anything like that. I loved what I was doing, and so I probably spent 45, 50 hours a week doing training and studying and working real-time missions and things like that. And then mid-career, when I moved into the Orion program, it was a little bit different because as technical challenges came up and budget challenges, they asked people to do more jobs. And so at one point, for a long time, I was doing like 3 jobs. So I spent a good 45, 50 hours a week there, not quite as voluntarily. And I came to this current job in my line organization. It's strictly 40 hours a week. And we very much value taking care of our employees in this particular organization. And we keep a real close eye on work-life balance. We have a very liberal telework program. COVID helped that out a lot, helped get that kick started. So It's a great organization. It's very refreshing, but not all organizations here at NASA or within the companies that support NASA are quite this, are quite the same.
Yeah, I would echo that from my experience in my career. It's all going to depend on the job, the company, the work group you're in, the requirements placed on that work group. I've known people who have gone years working 70, 80 hours a week doing something they love, right? So like for them, work-life balance was being able to see their family and making the most of that time with their family and then going back to doing what they loved, right? For other people, for other jobs I've had, it's like you show up, you work 40 hours and you can really set boundaries around when you sign off, when you sign in. And so as you think about like your organization may offer unlimited PTO, right? Just like Hudl does. And plug for Hudl, we actually mean it. We don't just put it there because we can say it, right? Like we as managers are encouraged to encourage our people to take time off. We even have Slack bots where we can see how many vacation days have been taken. And if it gets critically low, it flags people and you're like, oh, go take some time off. And so we can encourage them to take time off. I think kind of at a more meta level, um, if you pack your schedule really full, you're going to allow the amount of time you need to do tasks based on how you pack your schedule, right? So if you give yourself 80 hours a week to work a 40-hour week job, you're going to spend 80 hours working a 40-hour week job, right? And that's not fulfilling for anybody. But if you're able to really set your firm boundaries within your job, within your role, within your scope, then you're able to really find that work-life balance or that work-life integration that everyone is going to have like that different level that they seek, right? So that's my recommendation for students thinking about getting their first role.
Could I chime in? I know I already spoke. So I'm hearing a lot of people just referencing like company culture and different organizations doing different things. So I just want to add on that if you really feel like you're in a place where the environment feels toxic, you're being overworked, there's no reason that you have to stay there. So, we're here on the panel. I've been lucky to all have found companies that are really great about taking care of their employees. So I just want to make sure that you all are looking out for yourselves when you're looking for a job, and you don't want to stay anywhere that's toxic.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wrap this up. Yeah. Everything that everyone said, definitely take to heart. I'll just like give an example of myself, I guess, in terms of like the work-life balance. So I dance professionally for a sports team in the Dallas area. It is pretty busy when we are in season. So our season starts usually in January with practices every week, and then it gets even busier when we start games in April. So, and it goes April all the way to August, mid-August, and then you get like 2 months of break, and then in October you start training again for the next season. So auditions are coming up. So I'm dancing pretty much like 3-4 times a week at this point. It is a lot of time outside of work, and during this past season, this was like my first year like actually like doing this, so it was like totally new to me. My managers were like super accommodating. We would sometimes have like Friday games we would have to perform at, so they would let me, were really understanding of me like taking the time on Fridays to like go and like log off of work early and like get to the arena so I could like get ready for the games. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm, trying out for a couple more teams that have like a lot more weekday games. So I'm like, hopefully, like, I know that like if I'm at Capital One, they will support me in this thing because they know that dance is really important to me outside of work. So that's just like a quick, I guess like everyone else had really great like advice and comments, but that's just an example of, if you have like someone at work, or if you have a company culture that's very supportive, I feel like you're able to do a lot of things, including having like a side gig or something like I do that's like extracurricular, like a dance team. So yeah, that's just an example.
Thank you for
That's so
sharing.
cool.
Did anyone else want to chime in or add something before we move to the next question?
I think we all need an invite to Sabrina's next show. That's all I. That's all I have.
right. So the next question, what advice do you have for students exploring careers in tech? And that's kind of a little more exploration phase. So like how would you, because tech is so broad, right? There is so much you can do. And even if, for example, you have a degree in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, it doesn't mean that you have to do only this, right? Because it's such a broad field. How would you go about exploration?
I would say if you're unsure like where to start, find areas that you can dig into that interest you and see where it takes you from there. Again, my background is actually in exercise science and kinesiology, and I ended up in data through that route, through being curious about how humans interact with their work environments, which then got me plugged in with labs, which then got me plugged into other programs, which then put me into enterprise business intelligence, right? And had I started off my collegiate career majoring in, let's say, statistics or computer science, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today if it weren't for those experiences. Those experiences teach you an awful lot around how businesses run, how operations work. And that's core to any technology career, is having that understanding. Sabrina, I really like the fact that you're like, hey, I've got dual major, dual degree in finance and computer science. So I'm working for a company doing cool stuff, right? And things that interest you. Again, if you're exploring, find those things that interest you, because that will help you come back every day, and it will help you find that right work-life balance that keeps you motivated and doesn't just make it a 9 to 5, but something that you're passionate about.
This is kind of reminding me of my position, and I would say that try to look for a company that offers cool programs like rotational programs, because you can see that those companies they really value development of the employee by allowing them the opportunities to try different roles and see what's a good fit for them. So the program that I got into for Collins really targets very high achieving engineers, and um, it's very competitive, and I know that may be a little more limited to who can access that program, but there are lots of other rotational programs out there in all sorts of different companies. So if you have the chance, I say take it. I was on the fence for a while about whether I would even apply to this, but then I realized like this is such a great opportunity. I mean, when else can you really get the chance to work for in a structure of like 8 months each for different roles, and really diversify your experience in your portfolio. So when you're looking around at company websites, see if they have anything like that. And I know Sabrina mentioned that they also had a rotational program at Capital One, so that's awesome. And I'm sure there are a lot of other companies like that.
One thing, oops.
No,
I would say one thing to tack on, and I'm probably going to say what Jacob's trying to say, so I'm going to keep it short. On the flip side of like big companies with structures and rotational programs, like the flip side of that is going to be find a young startup. If you're young, you don't necessarily have a family, you take that risk, because there's more growth in working for a young, quickly growing company by making mistakes and fixing those mistakes constantly, and the learnings you'll face, and be able to niche yourself into a space that you're really passionate about. That flexibility is there, right? So like there's really the two sides of the coins, and both paths are great, and I've been in both paths, right? And so I would say on the flip side, also look at kind of those small companies where you can kind of chart your own path.
And then I guess what I was going to say is, so I don't know, when I was an undergrad, I really I kind of knew like a rough idea of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get my undergrad and then just go get a job. I didn't know what company, what field. I probably knew med device, but I feel like what I did a lot in college was I spent a lot of time focusing on the wrong things. Like for most of my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I just had this idea that like if I got all A's, everything would be great. Like I would be super attractable to companies. Like I would get hired, no problem. And I feel like when you're stuck in that mindset of my grades matter so much and I'm going to spend all my time like behind a book just studying, like trying to get the best grades possible, there's so many people out there who are spending time doing the things that like actually get you hired, like talking to people on LinkedIn, going to networking events, applying to jobs. And I feel like it's like a really common misconception that a lot of students have, is that their GPA is going to translate into success in the professional world. And I don't know, I dropped that mindset and I graduated with a 3.5. I'm proud of it. But I would just say that for me, the way I explored it was I of course, I had a personal story, and that's what got me involved in medical devices. But it really was like I found something that I was passionate about, and something that if I woke up every day and got to go do, it would really make me feel fulfilled. And then I just kind of had like this incessant desire, like super persistent with people on LinkedIn, talking to them, messaging them. And I just didn't stop until I got hired. So my biggest advice would be, I wouldn't put so much pressure on what company or what job you're trying to get into. I would just focus on getting a job at a company that you can somewhat get passionate about. And it's, especially for fresh grad hires, it's so hard to get your first job, but once you have your first job, all of the preceding jobs come easier. And my dad passed September 1st last year, and a piece of advice that always rings through my head that he gave me was, your first job doesn't have to be your dream job. So just get a job, and it's a starting point. So I would say, of course, aim for big companies and have those high ambitions. But at the end of the day, if you get a role that allows you to develop soft skills, which are, in my opinion, more important than hard skills, the hard skills will come and you'll be able to figure it out. But that's kind of my 2 cents.
That was so good, Jacob. Love that.
I'll say, probably out of you guys, I'm a hiring manager. I've been conducting interviews for the last couple of weeks for different levels of employees. And Jacob, you're the kind of person that we want to see. You have passion for what you do. You have a story. And you know what's important. It's not necessarily the grades. When I look at a resume, the grades are probably the least important thing that I see. I want to see, what have you done? What experience have you had that tells me a little bit about your personality? What do you like? Will you stick to the kind of job that I have available? Will you be compatible with the team? And that's what the interview questions are going to try to get to. So, yeah, I think as you're each building your own story, focus more on how do you tell that story? What are you doing with yourself other than getting good grades?
And then maybe the only thing that I could add was, for me, like, I really, really struggled. Like, when I first started applying to internships, I didn't get like a single interview, nothing, like zip. And I guess what I really did was, there's a lot of opportunities on UTD. I know, especially for biomedical engineers, you can get involved in research pretty easily. Just email a professor who does research. So looking for like things that aren't paid, but they still give you good experience are really helpful. So like research assistant positions are good. And also I was pretty involved in our biomedical engineering society. So like I did a lot of panels like this and things like that. Like you can put that under work experience on your resume and it gives you something. And also another thing is, I would never discredit like just a regular job, like a customer service job, things like that. Like it kind of shows that you're able to juggle a lot of things. Like I know I worked at Ross and On the Border before I got my first career in tech, and that helped me too. It gave me life experiences and again, soft skills. But
I want to emphasize research opportunities at UTD because I also worked as a lab assistant when I was going to school there. I hope you don't feel intimidated by being able to land a position because, if you can't land an internship, a research position is a really valuable experience. So I would like look up a list of research professors that I was interested in, and I would just email all of them. And, chances are one of them is going to have an opening in the upcoming semester. So I highly encourage students to do that.
Okay, yeah, again, everyone has great advice and great notes, so I'll just wrap it up. So I think there are a couple things I would recommend. So the first thing I would say is to start early. Obviously you don't have to be, like I know, like for me, I was like really worried about like internships and things like that, you don't have to be super worried if you don't get one like your freshman or your sophomore year. Obviously, a lot of companies, like including Capital One, we only hire juniors for our for our internships. But a lot of companies actually have they now have like early programs basically for freshmen and sophomores. So, for example, Capital One, we like the reason I even got my internship was I attended like our 1 week summit program. Basically, they flew me out for a week, and they I think there were like 20 of us, and we were at the headquarters in DC, and they basically brought in a bunch of Capital One engineers to give like sessions on the cloud and mobile development and like web development. And so and then we did like a little mini hackathon and got judged by some like Capital One directors. So that was like a really cool opportunity that I got, even though it wasn't like a full internship. I found that opportunity, I did that, and then they gave me like a direct like opportunity at like a power day to like interview for the internship. I did my internship, got a full-time offer, and now I'm here at Capital One like 2 years later. So I would say that like look for those like early programs. A lot of the bigger companies will offer them, and like they're always growing because I feel like the talent pipeline, the recruiting timeline is like slowly getting earlier and earlier every year. So I would definitely not like go to the career fairs. Like I had one company, I didn't end up taking their internship in my junior year, but I basically visited them at the career fair like every year. Like freshman year I said hi, and then sophomore year they recognized me, and the junior year they recognized me. And I actually did not do so hot on their, when I was finally like old enough grade wise to like apply for their internship in my junior year. I think I like bombed part of the technical interview, but they saw that I had like been interested in like their company for a really long time, and then they gave me, like I said, like we did like a follow-up interview, and they were like, okay, explain to me kind of like your story and what you would do differently from your initial interview. And then they were like, oh yeah, you're fine. Like so I feel like extensive networking earlier can also help in that regard. And then as for Jacob's comments on soft skills, so I also started interviewing. I only do technical interviews at Capital One for our interns and new grads coming in, but we literally I mean, it's not exactly like 50-50, but like obviously you want the hard job skills. So like the data structures and algorithms, you need to be able to solve our problems technically. But you also, like one thing that we also look for at Capital One at least is like the ability to communicate technical concepts to non-technical audiences. That is something you will have to do like so often in your career. Obviously I work at a bank, so like I'm working with like our ops associates, our call center associates. Like we have business folks who are defining our business logic. We have like UI folks and design folks who are like building out our user interfaces. So on a daily basis, I'm in meetings with people who are not technical, and so I'm having to like explain things that like I'm like, okay, here's this highly technical concept or highly technical piece of software that I built. How do I explain this from like a business perspective so that everyone can understand exactly what this does in terms of like the company? So I would say, yeah, again, soft skills are also really important. Communication's like a huge one. But if you don't have that yet, like, don't worry. I mean, like, obviously, like everyone else has said, like experience is super helpful, whether you're doing like research or you get like a co-op. If you have time during the semester, you can like explore that, or like a summer internship. Yeah, and customer service jobs, that helps a lot with communication, right? So the soft skills you can build in a lot of different ways.
And then the only other thing I want to add is a really, really common question that when I used to do panels like this that I would get asked is like, when is the right time to start looking? And I say the right time to start looking for jobs is right now. Because if I would have done what I did as a freshman, as a sophomore, like started applying, then maybe I mean, because like it's just natural with the job search, you're going to fail so many times. I mean, you're not going to fail, but you're going to get rejected. You're going to get generic rejection letter like more times than you're ever going to get a yes. So, and you really learn through failing, at least in the job search. So I would say the sooner you can start failing, the sooner you'll get your first success. Maybe that's not the best way to say it, but that was how I did it. I had to not get hired a lot until I figured out how to do it. But that's it.
Jacob, I really thought you were going to say the best time to start searching for jobs is yesterday. But really, yeah, the sooner the better. And I know that UTD, the Career Center, has practice interviews that you can schedule where you can do little, you know, practice session, and they will give you feedback. So I highly recommend doing that. I know it's a little nerve-wracking, you know, going in, sitting down, pretending like you're actually having an interview, but I think it's highly value added for sure. So please use those resources at UTD that I know they have.
Thank you. We have around 12 minutes left. If you can stick around longer, you're welcome to. I can say stick around longer in case students have more questions and we have more things to discuss. I wanted to open the space for questions the students might have. You can drop those in chat, or you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and ask the question that you might have. You can ask any speaker or all the speakers. Yeah, just wanted to open the space for questions. And this is your great networking opportunity, actually. So
Don't be shy. Don't be. I see someone's raising their hand.
Hello.
Hi, Kat.
Hi. Hello, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's probably y'all's lunchtime, so I really appreciate that. I'm a student veteran, and I worked for a little bit before pursuing my undergrad, and so I'm at a point where I'd love to consider having like a family, sometime like within the next 5 to 6 years, hopefully. And so I was wondering, like, what's some of the questions I should ask, or things about the culture I should like consider when making a decision in tech, I guess, or in career.
I would say if you're going to be having a family, I would say go for a company that has a very flexible work from home schedule. Like I know at my company, it's totally up to you. Like unless your job function, you have to be in the office. Like you can be hybrid, you can be remote, you can be anything you want. And I feel like a lot of companies after COVID are moving towards that. But that would be my advice. I would look for a company that would let you choose whatever work environment works best for you.
Did you say you were a veteran?
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know. Okay, awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And second, I would say that there, for at least Capital One, we have what are called business resource groups. And so basically there are employee groups that basically revolve around a certain aspect. So it could be, we have one for women in tech. We have like Blacks in tech, Hispanics in tech, and then outside of tech, we also have like our Asian Pacific Islander group, our LGBTQ plus group, and then we have a veterans group as well. And so we have like, I feel like a lot of companies will post about their companies basically diversity, inclusion, belonging efforts online. So you'll like even doing like a quick Google search of the company and like their pages and their culture, and seeing what kind of like opportunities and ways that they support different employee groups is helpful. That's just like for Capital One specifically. I know that we definitely highlight our business resource groups when we're doing recruiting. So I would definitely take a look at that.
Since you plugged that, Sabrina, I just wanted to remind everyone that Collins has those too, except we call it a different acronym, but you know, it's all the same. So yeah, love those groups. I'm very involved in them.
Yeah, Hudl does also. And I think the majority of like large-ish, medium-sized-ish companies these days do have those groups. So it would be a great question to ask in an interview, like what employee groups exist to help support you know, their employees. I think another thing to really take a look at when you're considering having a family is how generous is the paternity or maternity leave going to be at that company. Those tend to be very readily available and easily accessible pieces of information. So that would be one obvious question that that I think is really will tell you how much they value employees having a family and being able to support that family. So.
there is another question in chat about cybersecurity opportunities in any of your companies.
I'll say I know NASA is looking for cybersecurity experts. Each of the companies that we work with in the Artemis program have some cybersecurity specialists. So it is a growing field with growing areas of concern. But I don't know about any specific opportunities if that's what you're asking.
I will say for Capital One, we have something called the Cybersecurity Development Program. So even 10 years ago, all we had was the Technology Development Program and the Analyst Development Program. And so those were hiring software engineers or just engineers in general versus like business analysts. And those were the only two programs. Now there are, I think, over 10 programs. They've basically broken down the technology and analyst ones into separate groups because obviously, like technology development program could include like software engineers, data engineers, machine learning engineers, cybersecurity engineers, right? So there's tons of different categories. So we've actually broken all this out. So we have a software engineering or like technology development program. The original is like software engineering, data engineering. We have a machine learning development program. We have a cybersecurity development program. So my brother is in cybersecurity at A&M right now. And so I'm pushing him to apply for that next year when he's old enough to when he's about to graduate, because it is a full-time program. So I would encourage you to look into that. It's like a pretty fast growing program because it's pretty new. But it does definitely focus on like cybersecurity specifically. You won't be doing much like software engineering or data engineering. It's mostly like pen testing our systems. Obviously there's like red team, blue team, so both offensive and defensive opportunities, and it is rotational. So you can get like different aspects of you can basically get different aspects of the cybersecurity field. And yeah, and I think it's a really great opportunity to focus in cybersecurity really early on in your career. So yeah, just wanted to plug that.
Are there any other questions from students? Again, feel free to ask those in chat, or you can unmute yourself. You can raise your hands in Teams. There is a new question regarding career fairs and networking. I have never thought about my future until this year, and I don't really know how to ask proper questions. I want to know what are some good questions and tactics that help build relations with recruiters and people. That's a great question.
So I would say, I don't know. I never really went to the career fairs at UTD because there was never really like anybody hiring for biomedical engineers. It was mainly like mechanical, software, CS. And I know our biomedical engineering career fair, we never really got too many people to come. But in general, whenever I talk to recruiters or anybody, I feel like it's like really common that you go into these conversations like kind of being scared, like you're talking to somebody who has like a position of power over you. But I found that whenever I'm talking to like a recruiter or somebody in the professional world, just talk to them like, okay, like of course within reason, but talk to them like you're your friends. Like, and I mean that in the sense that don't put pressure on yourself to like come across a certain way. Just be genuine to who you are. And I would say maybe, yeah, if you're not sure what you want to do, I don't know, this is like really generic, but kind of sitting down and looking at the companies that are out there and what your major is and what you like about your major is how I would do it. And then I would kind of just come up with a list of companies from there, and then I would start being on the lookout for internship opportunities or fresh grad opportunities with them. But it's really a question that like you kind of have to ask yourself is what do you want to do? And it doesn't even have to be related to your career field. It can be anything you want. So just kind of think about what you're passionate about and what gets you excited. And if it's not related to engineering and it's related to communications, then go do that. But a college degree really just opens your door to a room full of opportunities. So just finish the degree and figure it out, I guess. Maybe not the best way to say it, but I hope you get what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I really like that advice to target your networking and begin to build up like a group of people that you know in that space. My biggest advice is to be human. Like sending out robotic LinkedIn messages to try to get hits probably isn't going to work as effectively as really taking the time to think about like, if I want to network with a person, what are they trying to do in their role? And you might be completely wrong, but like tailor your reach out message to really kind of resonate with them. And most of the time you're not going to get a response back, and just be okay with a little bit of that like uncertainty around the fact that they may not respond to you, and that's okay. And you just keep pushing the ball up the hill, and eventually you'll meet a really good group of people who are in your court and can help you find those opportunities. So
I think another really great opportunity to network besides career fairs is to also, and I think we mentioned this earlier, get involved in those organizations like IEEE or SHIP or SWE, or whatever the one for mechanical engineers is called. And because, you know, there are other people who are in the same discipline as you and kind of searching for the same jobs. So just really building that network of people that is truly going to be, you know, next generation of people in technology. It's good to get into that early. Maybe they've had internships and can tell you about their experiences, companies that they liked, maybe roles that they didn't like, and you're all kind of on the same level. So it's great to hear that perspective from other people. So I highly encourage getting involved in those organizations.
Thank you. And there are a couple more questions in chat. We only have a couple minutes left. Again, if you don't have time to stay, thank you so much for being here. I really love this conversation. And I believe you provided really great advice for students. And if you can stay for a little longer, for example, like 5-10 minutes, of course, you are welcome to stay. Couple more questions in the chat about switching domain from to other, improve your career growth and financial growth, work hours spent working. Yeah, feel free to answer any that you want to answer. Do you have anything to add?
I can speak to the question about working hours. So I think someone already answered in text. I also work 100% of my working hours. I think if you're finding yourself without things to do, start asking people for work. You can ask your manager, your teammates, and you know, usually someone will have something that they need help with, and that's a learning opportunity for you. I'll also mention that I've heard a good rule of thumb is for managers is to allow for like 4-ish hours a week for just like kind of general, you know, we all spend time like cleaning up our emails, organizing our files, just kind of administrative stuff like that. So don't feel bad if you find yourself sorting those things out. In the long run, working on those things will probably help you with your efficiency and how you work in the day. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
And then I would say for me, I definitely I try to work a full 8 hours every day, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like sometimes a lot of my jobs, like when I'm running these test cases, I have to wait for a certain condition to be triggered. And like it's kind of like I'm not to the point in this job where I can like do 2 tests at one time. That would be not good. I probably have to redo them both. So there are points where I'm waiting, but there are also periods where like we're not really busy or we're not gearing up to verify some design where there is a lot of free time. And I find in those times, like I know for my company, we kind of have like every single day for the project I'm working on, we have a meeting. And I would say about once a week, there's always something that comes up where like my manager will say like, hey, this would be really good if we could have somebody do this. And taking that initiative and like taking on a task that you don't really know what it entails, but you just want to do something that like, I don't know. Yeah, taking on a task you don't really know what it entails. It gives you a lot of opportunities to grow and learn new things. Like I recently did that, and it's given me a little bit more of like a leadership role in the team. So I would say if you're not working the full 8 hours, it's always good to ask around and look for more things to do because there's always stuff to do. It's just not right in front of you.
And Jacob, you mentioned when I was on the production floor, I also had times where I was waiting for something to get calibrated or a part to come in. And sometimes if you find yourself kind of in those little gaps during the day, that's a great opportunity to perhaps get involved in ERGs or resource groups. Um, like we mentioned, a lot of big companies have those different affinity groups. And if you have a little bit downtime here and there, I would say that I think every resource group would be happy to have any time that you can spare for contribution, even if it's just like 1 hour in the day. I think that could make a big impact.
I think there was like a second question, sorry, on switching from one domain to another, improving your career and financial growth. So maybe someone with more experience can expand upon this, but I'll just like give my take on it. I think it can, yeah, so definitely switching from like one specialty, I guess, to another can definitely help out your career and financial growth. I would say that for example, like I'm working on my master's degree. I think Jas said she did like the early track like master's degree program. And I did that too, except for I think I started working as soon as I graduated from my bachelor's degree because it was the pandemic and I was like, I want to be starting to earn money. So obviously I did not finish my master's degree within like, it was supposed to be like a 4+1, but it's become more of like a 4+3 at this point. So hoping to defend my thesis at some point. But my master's, like my job is software engineering. It's just like, normal software engineering, computer science, but my master's degree is specifically in machine learning and artificial intelligence. And so I am looking at or maybe interested in moving towards a machine learning engineer like position either at Capital One or maybe somewhere else like in the future. And I think that can definitely like obviously I have a good strong software engineering base, but I think with the academic learnings that I have on ML and AI, I feel like I can become an even better like engineer in general because I can combine my ML and AI academic experience with my real world software engineering experience. And usually like as you go further on in your career, what I've seen just from like what my mentors have told me, because I'm only 2 years in, so I feel a little bit like a baby so far, but like what my mentors have told me is that as you go further on in career, like there's kind of 2 tracks. You can go into people management or you can go and be at Capital One, we call them distinguished engineers or individual contributors, but that's another path. And so if you go like, for example, in the individual contributor path, that's like where you like highly specialize in something, whether it's like solutions architecture or machine learning or something like that. And you, of course, like the more skills you have, I'd say the more skills you have, like the higher you'll get paid, and the more opportunities will be like available to you at like a higher level. But someone who like maybe our senior manager and deputy chief can talk about this as well, because I'm only 2 years in, so this is just what I've heard from people.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like career and financial growth, the best thing you can do for yourself is go collect experiences. Don't early on you focus on the financial aspect too much, because sometimes you can chase down a path that you're not interested in because it makes more money, or in other cases, like that path may just disappear someday. So don't get so far niched because of the finances that you can't pivot or get other experiences. The advice that I would have is like when I hear domain, I think of like a business model or a business that somebody's in. In your first role, really learn that domain really well. And then some of those skills and knowledges will transfer, and then others won't. But as you move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, you become more generalized in your experience of the different domains. And then at some point, you will start to just kind of eventually evolve into a single domain as your career grows. And then that in and of itself will create financial growth and financial rewards. So my biggest advice in terms of like switching is don't switch too fast. Make sure you're going deep, you're learning where you're at today, so that the financial major rewards come later. So, because I think everyone on this call who's going to be listening to it later is in a position to be in a career field that they're going to make more than enough money to support most lifestyles that they want. So.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you so much for staying a little longer. Are there any other final questions before we wrap up today?
Yulia, could I wrap up with a thought? It's not
Yeah,
a answer to any of the questions, but I know that people have had to drop off since we're over time, but hopefully anyone who might be watching the recording later could get some value out of this comment. So this past Monday was World Mental Health Day, and I just wanted to remind everyone to kind of think about mental health. I have also, been a student in engineering. I know how difficult it is. I know how many late nights you're doing homework and how stressful it is to keep track of all the deadlines for projects and midterms and studying for exams. So I just want to say that anxiety is very real. So I encourage you to, if I think everyone could benefit from counseling. UTD has a counseling center that you can utilize as a resource, or you can check to see, depending on what coverage you have, if there's anyone in network. I know when I was a student, I was a little hesitant at first. I was like, I don't have time for counseling. I'm too busy doing homework. But truly, really just taking 1 hour out of your week or every other week, even for yourself and to process, what's going on in your life, I think is overall in the end beneficial to kind of help manage all of the stress that comes with being a student. And I'll say that this year, my life's been a lot better since I started on antidepressants. So I think if we just have a more open dialogue about mental health, that would be better for everyone. So I just wanted to remind that of our students, and let you know that it is important and to take care of yourself, and always remember that.
Thank you for sharing that advice. All right, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I loved having this conversation. I think it was extremely helpful. To answer the final question, chat, about internships, you can find internships in Handshake. If you go to Handshake, click jobs, there is internship filter. That's the best way to search for those, but also you can check out LinkedIn jobs, Indeed, Glassdoor, all of those are great. I would say Handshake is one of my favorite because it's very tailored to students. But definitely all of those resources are great. Feel free to schedule an appointment with us. We are here to help you. You're not alone. So we do like resume reviews, career appointments, career advising, mock interviews, and things like that. We do other events. So thank you so much for joining today. And I'm really grateful for our panelists who shared information, a lot of really great advice. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Well, you're awesome, Yulia. Thank you for organizing this and inviting me.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.